Although the Israelites were exiled to a foreign land because of their persistent pattern of sin, that was not the end of the story. Through the prophet Jeremiah, God promised, "When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to the promised land." Then, through the prophet Isaiah, God promised that the kingdom of Israel would begin to grow again. Welcome to Day 22's journey, where we explore Isaiah's prophecy about a Christmas stump. Isaiah declared, "A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit." After spending 70 years in exile, a remnant returned to the promised land, just as God had promised they would. But it was only a remnant that returned. When you hear the word remnant, think remainder. In mathematics, 99 divided by 5 is 19, remainder 4. 4 is but a small fraction of the 99, a mere 4%. That's about the size of the group that returned to Jerusalem from exile in Assyria and Babylon. A small fraction of the whole. But the prophet Isaiah uses trees instead of mathematics to describe how small the remnant was. Back in Solomon's day, when the kingdom of Israel was enjoying her golden years, she was a tall, sturdy tree with leafy limbs stretching out far and wide across the land. But because of her sin, she was cut off at ground level through the exile. Though God allowed a remnant to return to the promised land, it was only a remnant. To use Isaiah's words, a stump. Nothing but a stump remained of the once grand and glorious kingdom of Israel. What had come of God's promise that David's kingdom would endure forever? Had Israel's sin nullified or voided God's promise of the coming Savior? No, definitely not. Remember, this was a no ifs, ands, or buts promise from God, an unconditional promise. Though Israel was now nothing but a stump, there was still a stump. And this stump, according to Isaiah, is a Christmas stump. You might be far more familiar with Christmas trees, but Isaiah's Christmas stump has a much clearer connection to Jesus. Isaiah says, "From this stump will spring forth a shoot, a seed, a son who descends from the lineage of Eve and Abraham." In other words, the family tree of Jesse, the father of the renowned King David, would be revived. A remnant would begin growing again. And from the line of Judah, the line that bore those lion-like leaders, the promised Savior King would still be born. Thank God that His promise to send a Savior to redeem us from the curse of our sin was a no ifs, ands, or buts kind of promise. And thank God that though He had to punish Israel, her failures did not stop His promise from being fulfilled.